Greetings in the love and light of the one infinite creator. I am Andrii Zvorygin, joined here today with Scott Baker, Ed Fred Nashley, and Scott will be presenting excerpts of the Law of One in the beginning about the creation from the perspective of the Law of One. All right, go ahead, Scott. Take it away.
Thanks, Andrii. Let me just introduce myself
Go
for a
ahead.
few minutes, given that we're kind of new.
Mhm.
I currently live in New Zealand. I was actually born in New Zealand way back in the 60s
Mm-hmm.
and grew up here when I was right around early 20s. I moved to the United States for a vacation and stayed for 30 years. Um,
Wow.
Kind of how things work. And went to
Mhm.
university and kept going to university and ended up getting married and had 3 kids and raised those kids and lived all over the states from California to Utah to Illinois to South Carolina to Texas to most uh, all through there, and just loved the different culture in each of the states there, and just the general positive energies that that the people of America have. I really feel like I've become more American than I am New Zealander or Kiwi. But in about 2015, my wife and I went separate ways. Our kids are growing up, and I decided, hey, I think my vacation's over. It's time to go home. But
Mm-hmm.
during
Wow.
that time, I spent most of my career teaching leadership in businesses. I worked for Arthur Andersen, Lockheed Martin, a number of smaller companies, but those were the two big ones. Spent more than 10 years in Lockheed Martin teaching leadership, developing leadership programs, etc., to their internal cadre of leaders, from first line leaders up to executives. And um, so that became sort of my niche, helping leaders implement change and just manage people better. And um, did the same when I came back to New Zealand in a number of different companies over here before I retired last year. So that's kind of my story in a nutshell. Uh, Fell in love with the Law of One deeply. Actually, listened to a number of different people. David Wilcock was probably the one that sort of
Mm-hmm.
uh, planted the seed. He
Yep.
I listened to him, and he mentioned it several times, and so I started to invest in it and
Same.
look at it. Bought the books, and I like the tactile feeling of having the books. So I have the 5 books, and I tend to write in the margins and underline and make notes and cross reference, kind of the old
Cool.
school way. But
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of where it
It's a good
sort of
way.
been alive for me. Yeah. So today I've actually developed a number of these and presented different topics, about 20 plus different topics. This is just one of the latest ones that I've done, and so let's just go into it. One of the ways that I like this to work is as I advance the slides. Let's see if it'll advance on me.
Okay, we're seeing the first
There
one
we
in the
go.
beginning. Okay, there. Mm-hmm.
Infinity became aware. So what I'll do is we'll talk through these slides and sort of just give you my kind of take on what Ra is saying and what it really means. And then at the end of each slide, I'll ask for questions. So we'll have questions as we go through so that we can start create dialogue about what's on the slide currently. Once all the questions are answered or discussion is sort of peters out, we'll move to the next slide, which carries on from the theme that we're establishing. But
Mm-hmm.
basically, today we're going to talk about sections of section 13. So I have the reference in the side there, section 13, question 5, just straight out of the Law of One text that you can get off the LNL Research website. Um, uh, uh, my highlighting is in yellow, which is some of the responses that I'd like to kind of focus on, but the text is not changed in any other way. There might be some times where I edit pieces out because Ra does have a interesting habit of jumping around sometimes and putting in little caveats and then jumping back into the topic. And uh, just for brevity, I sometimes edit those out, but I usually put 3 dots to show that.
Mm-hmm.
So feel free to look as we go through and listen, and then if you have questions, either raise your hand or when I ask for them, feel free to speak up. However, Andrii wants to facilitate that, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just start. So Infinity became aware. This is kind of how the very first beginning happened. So Dawn asks, Ra, can you tell me the earliest, first known thing in creation. All right, so the first known thing in the creation is infinity. This infinity is creation. Infinity is hard concept for the human mind to grasp because we are in a finite fractal expression of it, and everything in our language and most languages, some of the more ancient languages, not so much, but our language is very much designed to speak about objects and things and use kind of finite objective terms. When we talk about eternal things and metaphysical things, the language is not very suited for that. And Ra struggles with that and mentions that many times throughout the text, within the limits of your language. And then he
Hmm.
sort of, as a caveat, will say something. But uh, that's true with the concept of infinity. One of the ways to think about infinity is through mathematics. You can think about the biggest number that you can possibly conceive of, and then just add one to it, and you start to get the idea that it doesn't have an end game. You can always add one to it, no matter how big the number. And so, in counting things, we can get a concept of it just never ends. That's also true in a spatial way when we think about the void of space. Now, that is infinity. And in fact, space is often a good analogy, a common analogy used in reference to the divine nature. And as we go into the internal journey of meditation and learning to quiet in the chatter of your mind, you learn to connect into the inner space as and find that it's as vast as the outer space, and that's part of the infinity within you. So the first thing ever was infinity. It was always present. Then Don asks, well, from that this infinity, then must have come what we experience as creation. What was the next step in the evolution, essentially? And there's a profound statement. Infinity became aware. Now, just think about that. That aware means conscious, means alive. Infinity became a being. It developed a concept of understanding. It was aware of itself as everything, of what was. So that was a huge step there. Infinity became aware. It became a living entity. After this, what happened? Awareness led to the focus of infinity into infinite energy. So then it became aware, it is everything, and then it learned through its awareness to focus energy or itself in different ways of expressing or creating or playing in a sense, right? And it created what we call infinite energy. Ra goes on, you called this by various different sound vibrations. That's his way of saying different names. The most common of your to your ears being logos or love. So focused infinity is experienced by us as love. And that's Ra's way of saying God is love. Focused infinity, focused awareness creates love. So the creator, in this focusing of infinity as an aware or conscious principle, called by us as closely as we can, uh, create understanding and learning in your language. There's this little caveat about the language, intelligent infinity. So Ra doesn't use the term God very often because they're trying to keep out of the religious quagmire. People have a lot of belief constructs around their religious theological meanings of religious terms. So instead of God the creator, Ra saying intelligent infinity, which is more of a sort of a scientific definition of what happened. Infinity became aware or intelligent. So the creator is intelligent infinity. Focusing itself creates the experience of love, which is an attractive force, isn't it? And so focused, intelligent infinity is experienced as love and expressed as love, logos. What questions or comments do you have about that
No,
so far?
I have a few. of both. Okay. Well, one thing I wanted to share first was about infinity, and I think that actually there is some very common examples of how people, because I think as souls we have this kind of innate feeling that things are infinite, but then in reality is finite. So, for instance, economists think that the world is infinite, and that, you know, if you have enough money, then you can just get more land, it'll just appear, or you'll have more resources. So it's kind of like when a child, you know, wants something that someone else has, they think, you know, that crying about it, and then it'll just appear out of the infinity. And so I think there's kind of that understanding there. And then there was some other things I want to mention. So kind of like I had my own kind of spiritual awakening experience where I had my own kind of like communications about this very topic. And so for me, like what I saw, like when I went to the primordial space at the beginning of creation, is I saw like infinite nothingness. So it was like, you know, black, no feeling, like very numb, and all those things. And then what happened was infinity became aware, and how that happened is it's how it was explained to me at the time through my spirit, is because I was a computer programming background, is the logic gate not. So you had a zero, and then the logic gate not converts that into a one. And so that is also, awareness is based on, so you have something and then it changes. So say for instance our pupils are black, right? And that's kind of that primordial nothingness. And then it's receiving, it makes those photons not photons, and then you can be aware of it. But as long as those photons are free and not being observed, then, you know, you're not aware of them. Um, and then let's just round that off. And so the love, so you had zero and one. So you had these two things, and that was, and the and is love, in that sense. And then intelligence infinity, um, I know that they talk about that in other places, like the third eye of all the possibilities. Okay, and I see Ed has his hand up. Go ahead, Ed. Or I don't know if you wanted to respond, Scott, before he goes up.
No,
Hello.
that was wonderful. Go ahead, Ed. Yeah.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
Go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of carry on with from what Andrei was saying. Really, really, when you actually look at mathematics, it's a bit of a weird thing because it's just a human construct. And Ra kind of mentions this multiple times. But really, when you look at the idea of infinity, there's no such thing. That is a number that we've invented to match up with there being no way of actually conceptualizing the infinite, essentially. Now, what Quo actually confirms a bit, you know, further down the line is that with that it isn't actually an infinite creator, as in the creator is infinite. No, its consciousness is infinite, and all of the space that it encounters, it turns into creation, and it expands infinitely. So we pull in the love. Love is the attractive force that pulls everything back together once he actually understands the one original thought, right? So really, when you start off with what the universe is in itself is nothingness given creation, being consciousness, like the Hermetic rules say. You know, what is it? All is mind. That is the first law of the Hermetic principles. Everything is mind. There is only mind. We are all just dreams dancing inside a dream, right? That's what Ra says, you know, like. So all of this makes perfect sense so far.
Okay, great.
Yeah, the Hermetic principle, the seven Hermetic principles resound consistently throughout the Law of One. We're using different terminologies to talk about the same thing, which is exactly what we need to do, because each gives sort of another little kind of tint or twist to it to help sort of build that out what we're talking about when we talk about affinity, awareness. Awareness often is interchanged with consciousness, which can be interchanged with intelligence.
Oh yes, so there's something I was going to say,
apart.
Scott. I didn't mean to interrupt because I completely agree that everything, all of these different terms, consciousness. There's only one consciousness in the whole universe, and we're all just viewing it as individualized versions.
Yeah.
The thing I was going to say that I forgot to mention. I apologize for jumping in with, but you reminded me. It's this idea of mathematics and infinity. Really, in actual kind of statistical mathematics, when you look at it, it's far better to think about it, like as Andre said, as 0 or 1. But even those are imaginary numbers in our whole idea, because 1 is everything, is one whole. Now, there can't be 2 of anything in the universe, because they're going to be different things.
Yes.
It doesn't matter whether they look the same, they act the same, they are different. There can never be 2 of them. Because there's only one universe, being one song, universe song. That's how it all fits together.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just want to say that the 1 and 0 thing is very important, because when you actually look at it, that's how all of infinity works. There is the journey from 1 to 0. Anyway, I do apologize for interrupting, Scott. I completely agree with what you were saying. I just wanted to jump in with what I said. I do apologize.
No apologize. I actually encourage you to add into the discussion. That's perfect. Go ahead, Andre.
Yeah, I just wanted to add also that we actually have evidence. We have evidence that the nothingness is the primordial infinity, because it is 99.9999% of everything that is. Like like an atom, that's 99.999% empty space. So it's all of that primordial infinity.
No. Come on, Andre. We all know that Ra says there's no such thing as empty space, and we all know that 1 cubic inch of squared can power the whole planet for the next 1,000 years. So come on. All you got to do is suck all the atoms out of the vacuum, pass a magnetic field out over it, and it pumps out electrons.
Anyway, it's a type of infinity. All right, we'll agree with that.
I do apologize. Yeah. Love you guys.
All right.
One of the ways to look at it is our 5 limited senses primarily is what we experience reality through, and they are not able to experience the Creator as directly. We experience it as emptiness. We experience space as being empty. And like you said, Ra says it's not really empty, but to us, it appears that way in our fractal limited sensory perceptions from third density mortality. Yeah. So what is empty space in you? All of the gaps, all the 99.9999% of the volume of each part of you is the divine beingness. What we call space is intelligent infinity. It has a volition. It has awareness, and that's the power of this. Is once you understand that in the beginning, this is how we started. This is what we are. Right? It's not talking about something outside of ourselves. Like you said, look, Ra said there can be no 2 infinite beings. There is only, for it to be infinite, it must be 1. Because if you have 2 infinite things where one ends and the other begins, they become finite. They're separated. So they're finite now. And that we're going to look at actually the concept of finite in just a minute. Let's go to the next one, and then we'll sort of build on this if you like.
Oh, sure.
So the next thing happened, and Don asked, can you state what happened next? So we have infinity becoming intelligent or aware, and focusing itself into an experience of intelligent energy known as love. So then after that, he says the next step is still at this space-time nexus in your illusion. In other words, this is what's going on right now. Achieving its progression as you may see it in your illusion. So it's still going on. This is what you're experiencing right now, the next step. The next step is an infinite reaction to the creative principle following the law of one in one of its primal distortions, freedom of will. So there's a lot packed into just that sentence. It's an infinite and ongoing reaction to the creative principle. So there we know that that divine being that is intelligent infinity has a creative nature. It has an aspect of it that wants to explore and create. And that's in our nature too. It's fundamental to us because we're fundamentally a reflection of it. So in its creative principle and its creative nature and our infinite reaction to that, um, it created or discovered a primal distortion called freedom of will to enable the fractals of itself to experience the creativity within certain finite, and we're going to look at finite in a minute in the next slide, finite or limiting parameters. It endowed us with what it has, freedom of will. So freedom of will become a fundamental, essential principle within the whole law of one. In fact, they're very, very clear on that. It's interesting to me that there's a number of spiritual teachers that say that once you return, if you look at what you are as oneness, you really don't have free will because you're just doing what you're told or programmed to do. Ra says, no, that's the wrong way of looking at it. That's not how it is. You were given free will within parameters. Within third density parameters, we have freedom. Second density, they have a form of free will in that. And any of you that own pets know they have a tendency to do what they want at times, not what you want. So they have a tendency, a way of having expression of free will. Every level of density has a different level of free will or awareness of how to exercise that free will. And that's what the 7 densities are. They're increases in awareness and experiences within ever expanding levels of freedom of creative will. And that's kind of what he's saying here. The next step is what we're going through right now, and it's an infinite ongoing reaction. He then says, this may, thus many, many dimensions, infinite number are possible. So not just dimensions like the densities, but dimensions within the densities. When you die, your consciousness goes still in third density to a dimension that's outside of our reality here, right? And there's a cycling process, and Ra talks a lot about what happens in the process of karmic resolution and what happens in death and reincarnation. But there are many dimensions, so there's many levels of that. The energy moves from the intelligent infinity due first to the outpouring of randomized creative forces. So here he's talking about how this freedom of will and creative desires or aspect or urge that the creator has starts to sort of form things. This then creates patterns which in holographic style appear as the entire creation. Remember, in holographic style, if you have a true holographic picture, say you have a beautiful holographic picture of a rose, and you cut out a piece, just a small little square piece of the picture, put it under a microscope, what you see is not the little piece out of the leaf or whatever part of the rose you cut that piece out of. You actually see the whole rose. The whole picture in a hologram is in every minute aspect of that picture. That's what makes a hologram or a holographic image different than just a normal photo or a normal image. And that's what the analogy is here. The pattern which in holographic style appear to be the entire creation, no matter which direction or energy is explored. These patterns of energy begin then to regularize their own local, shall we say, rhythms. Another one of the principles, Hermetic principles, I think it's the fifth one. It's the fifth one. And fields of energy, thus creating dimensions and universes. So there's a lot in that. Freedom of will, though, I think is the key takeaway, and it's paramount throughout the law of one that they don't violate, they respect freedom of will, that we must make the choice, that this density, third density, is the density known as the choice. Questions, comments on that?
So I had a thing to say is that kind of in that primordial vision I was having. So the after and after you had and, then you actually also had or. So you could have one and one, like one or zero and one, and basically that is the kind of the foundation of free will. Okay, go ahead, Ed.
Sorry, I have to turn off my speaker, otherwise you guys can't hear me. Okay, so my main thing about this whole thing is what Alistair Crowley said, which is love is the law, but love under will. And this kind of is fully exactly what Ra says. You know that the first thing, the main thing that makes the universe is love. Everything is made of love. Everything is love. It will return to love. It is the thing that pulls us all together. But will is the thing that makes the choices that drive us there. Yeah. So love is the law, but love under will. And that is essentially it. That is us bringing the universe back together as creators. So, I always think that that's the kind of the best way of summing up this whole part here. That it's the like Scott pointed out, the opposite of most of the other ways, that there's deterministic, you are just a robot, blah blah blah. No. Ra sets it up with multiple ways of there being free will. One, you are born. You choose the way you're going to go and what you're going to do. You do, not any other individualized consciousness. No, you do. Then, when you get here, you get to pick what you do while you're here. How free is that? You make your own choices. That's what the veil's about, right? And then, realistically, like what Scott pointed out, and what this passage so perfectly puts down, that even if, no matter how many multidimensional possibilities there are, your choices collapse that waveform to then create a holographic version of all. The microcosm to the macrocosm, all being one thing, as in, the one. Anyway, love you guys.
Yep.
Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. So I don't know if anyone else has any comments, or if we want to move on to the next.
Yeah, let's move on.
Mhm.
I have one thing.
Okay, go ahead, Ashley.
It's me.
wait.
It's Grace. Hi.
Oh, Grace. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Okay, go ahead.
No worries. I think I'm sorry, my screen moved when I was
Oh, let
thinking
me go back.
about. Yes,
I'll go back.
please. Thank you so
There you go.
much. Oh,
Oh,
when it comes
okay.
to like freedom of will, and I get like a little bit sticky here when it comes to us like planning our incarnation, because there have been like for instance, I'm reading from a philosopher right now, and he talks about our lack of true freedom and will in carnation because everything is already planned to some degree. But I think, like Ed said, like we plan it ourselves. So
Mhm.
I guess I get a little bit stuck there sometimes.
Yeah, let me just speak to that for a minute, because I actually have a presentation on that. But in a nutshell, Ra says it depends on what level of light you are at in your reincarnation journey, and if you look at it from the chakra points of view, if you are still living in the lower energies of the lower three chakras, much of your reincarnation is automated. And Ra says this, it's just automated because there's a curriculum you need to pass through. Once you start to activate your heart chakra and then you die, in that, from then on, you have a lot more to say. You still have say before then, but you have a lot more influence over how you're reincarnated into what, and into what kind of curriculum you're signing up for. And so it becomes, there's a big shift in your ability to influence your next incarnation when you evolve energetically from out of the living in the lower three chakras, which is the root chakra is all about your safety and security. The sacral chakra is all about your identity, and the solar plexus chakra is all about how you are, your influence in society, your kind of your power, influence, etc., in the social complex of people. though those are the lower three chakras. Once you get to the love or heart chakra, you are now given much more leeway to influence what your next incarnation has. And Ra's quite clear on that. It's quite beautiful.
Yeah. And I just wanted to give an example anyways, and that being that I was born on November 11th, 1987, so that's 11/11, and then November 11, 1987 actually adds up to the number 11. And then my name, Andrii Zvorygin, also the numerology is 11. And so that indicates to me anyways that clearly I had some planning to do with creating that, because that kind of stuff doesn't happen by accident.
Yeah. There aren't accidents. That's beautiful. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Let's see what comes up in this one. So individualized self, exploring manyness. And so then Don again asks, could you tell me then how intelligent infinity became, shall we say, how intelligent infinity became individualized from itself? So that's a great question. This is an appropriate question. Ra even basically says that's a good question. The intelligent infinity discerned a concept. The concept was discerned due to freedom of will, of awareness. The concept was finity. What a powerful statement. So in its intelligence, it discerned the idea of finity. What's the difference between infinite and finite? One is limited, the other is limitless.
Mhm.
Finite is a limited expression of itself, right? And that's what happens. This was the first primal paradox or distortion of the law of one. Thus, the one intelligent infinity invested itself in an exploration of manyness, creating many finite fractals of itself. And we are one of those expressions of manyness. Due to the infinite possibilities of intelligent infinity, there is no ending to manyness. The exploration, thus, is free to continue infinitely in an eternal present. So there's how we came about as a kind of feeling like a separate self-identity. It was to explore the concept of finity. The infinite wanted to understand what would it be like to be many, and how will I understand that? And that's what we're involved in all of the densities as we go through the octaves, experiencing the infinite, experiencing the finite. Comments on that?
Does Ed, you had your hand up. Did you want to say something?
Okay, so my only thing would be about this individualized consciousness that we are, each separately, but individually. I would say it starts far earlier than third density, and I agree that maybe you get more choices, as it were, with how you reincarnate. But I'd say that it's always your choice at what you reincarnate as, at every level, from elements to atoms to to single-celled organisms, all the way up the scale. How much light you can handle, I think, more is as much to do with how intelligently you can design your next step, maybe. But I'd argue that every single incarnation, as we speak about here, as in the manyness, would be every single thing in creation, not just those that had reached the density. Would
Absolutely.
be my point so far, really.
Yeah. In fact, this is reflected quite well later on in the Law of One, where Don and Carla are worried about Garfield, their cat, who is ill, and they love this cat. And they ask Ra about him, and Ra says that he is ready to transition to third density, but he wants to stay with you longer. Their love for Garfield, and that Garfield was a second density being that had now qualified to become third density. And in fact, being a pet lover, I love how Ra talks about the pets, because he indicates that when we make animals our pets, second density creatures our pets, we give them a great opportunity to graduate into third density in their next incarnation because they learn a sense of their own individual identity from us. We give them that by the way we treat them like they're one of the family, etc. And that was so true for Garfield. So Ra basically told them that Garfield in his next incarnation, if he chooses to, and Ra made that clear, if he chooses to, can incarnate next time as a third density human somewhere.
So they learn the lessons of love with us, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't it Gandalf? I thought the cat was called Gandalf.
Oh, it was Gandalf. Yeah, I said Garfield. You're exactly right. I was trying to think of what
Gandalf.
Was that, and I thought about the cartoon character instead. Yeah, it's Gandalf.
No, but I agree. There's some of my favourite passages as well. I think that Ra eloquently explains how, that little Gandalf was his own entity in his own right, that made his own choices. It had learned those lessons of love by being a pet, by being close to humans, had showed it how to individualize itself outside of what would be the normal prey-predator cycles. Could I just say, I actually have a ghost fox who is learning the same things from the opposite side. Anyway, I apologize.
Wonderful. Yeah, great.
Yeah, and in terms of this individual self-exploring manyness, I think this is just a concept that is like very universal. That so many people just have this innate understanding that the creation is the creator experiencing itself.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see what happens then. So now we bring in matter and light and stuff into it. So Don asks, then can you tell me how the galaxy and the planet systems were formed? And Ra says the energies moved in, and this is a very important statement, increasingly intelligent patterns. How do you get increasingly intelligent patterns? By learning or evolving. So here is a concept that intelligent infinity itself is learning and evolving. It's part of what it's doing throughout experience. We add to it the experience of finity, and it's learning and evolving, and therefore able to create increasingly intelligent patterns until the individualization of various energies emanating from the creative principle of intelligent infinity became such as to be called or to be co-creators. And so these individualized patterns, which we are one, evolved to the point that they became co-creators. And we learn later that, and it'll show later in the text, but basically the suns in our solar system and the suns, specifically the central sun in the center of the galaxy, is the logos, or the first begotten, if you like, of infinite intelligent infinity, and was endowed with co-creative skills to create all that happened in that universe, and set up the rules of natural evolutionary rules and the rules of the dynamics of science and everything as part of its free expression of that creative principle. So that co-creative thing is very, very interesting in that the one infinite creator doesn't micromanage every aspect of it. It's involved in that it's delegated, in a sense, to aspects of itself in fractal form, creative authority or power. And thus the so-called physical matter began. The concept of light is instrumental in grasping the great leap of thought, as the vibrational distortion of infinity is the building block of that which is known as matter, the light being intelligent and full of energy. So matter is actually light vibrating at different frequencies and levels. We are made of love and light. It's interesting that this density is called the density of choice. Fourth density is the density of love. Fifth density is the density of light. Love and understanding go together. Light and wisdom go together, right? So we evolve from choice to love to light. Love and light, love being the force that brings together, light being the force that seeks and goes out. Love being the divine feminine force that attracts, light being the divine masculine force that seeks and penetrates the darkness that explores, if you like, that goes forth, right? So the two are balanced. This is again part of the hermeneutic or hermetic principles known as matter. So the light being intelligent and full of energy, thus being the first distortion of intelligent energy, which was called by the creative principle. And so there we have how stuff came about. And we are part of that, our physical beingness. We identify so much with this individual separate physicality, but there's a part of us that knows that we're much more than that. And even if it stays at a subconscious level, depending on, again, the level of light that you've graduated through in your chakra points, being that the microcosm of the chakras is a reflection of the macrocosm of the densities. So we're at solar plexus third density, moving to heart fourth density. Comments on that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wanted to say that one of the ways I like to think about it is that our bodies are light bound by love,
Mm-hmm.
and we are animated by love, informed by light.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like I can't remember the exact number, but something like 36 trillion individual cells in the human body. That's a universe. Think about that. You yourself physically are a universe, and the fact that 36 trillion individual cells, each cell has its own consciousness. It has its own barriers. It has its own individuality in a sense. And sometimes they rebel, and that becomes a disease like cancer, etc. But 30 trillion working mostly in harmony, you are the God of that universe.
Not to mention all of the atoms.
Back down even more granular. Yeah. So there's a lot of cooperation at a micro level, just like there is at the macro level in the image you're looking at of a galaxy.
Ed, go ahead.
I was going to say that this, for me, is a fantastic comment when you actually look at how Ra relates physics in really, really kind of basics terms. You know, like I don't know whether you can put the screen up for me, Andrei, but I want to get the quote up right so I can see it properly. Thank you, man. Okay, so increasingly intelligent patterns, yeah, and units of individualizations of various energies, right? Okay, so this creative principle that we're talking about, that this whole passage is really about, that's what it does. Yeah, it creates those increasingly intelligent patterns. Now, when we look at all of nature, every single thing you can look at comes down to sacred geometry, right? It comes down to spheres interacting with spheres that then make lines, right? And that is kind of how everything from, you know, the Pythagorean and Platoic version of things, because I love how Ra brings in Plato as well. You can add everything he says is full on Ra material too. But you know, the idea of a logos, for example, logos being a concept, a divine idea. That's what the word logos really kind of comes down to in the Greek, right? So this idea of increasingly intelligent patterns. So you get more and more complex sacred geometric patterns. Those patterns then basically, after a certain level of in intricacy, become the next part, the
co-creators,
individualizations, right? Right. So they become aware. So I do apologize. I'm stumbling through my words. The whole idea is that we are every single thing is co-creator, because, you know, really we're all that individualized consciousness. So we can't be anything else.
Yeah.
Anyway, the other bit I was going to say was this idea of where matter comes from. Yes, you've got the light. Yes, it interferes with will, right? So that gives you like infinite intelligence meets infinite energy. Then they create matter. And at every single scale, all the way up and down, the same corresponding shapes respond to the same corresponding densities, from the cosmic, you know, galactic to the atomic. I apologize, Andrei. Love you.
All right. Well, yeah, I just wanted to add a little bit, like, so I just asked Grok here, and so the human body is made of 37.2 trillion cells. That's the estimate. And then we actually are also the a host for 39 trillion microbial cells, that live in our gut. So we
yeah,
also have
dude. If you want to get into
pathogens.
the genetics of it, you're actually only 10% human because of the fact that there's actually more than not like 90% of your DNA comes from the huge range of bacteria and other various organisms that live on and in you. So you're actually a really tiny chunk human, just to say overall.
Yeah, if you were to put all the DNA strands.
Just to say, ask it to try and guess how many atoms that is, because that's a lot of organisms, like living entities, you know?
Fair enough.
Thank you. Yep. All right. So then let's look at the concept of an illusion, because he keeps referring back to that as our reality. 1313, just following on from the last one. The galaxy and all other things of material of which you are aware are products of individualized portions of intelligent infinity. So there's the finite expressions or fractal expressions. As each exploration began, it in turn found its focus and became co-creators. So by its own will, it found what it wanted to focus on, what it was attracted to. And that became its unique kind of mission, if you like, or purpose, is what he's saying here. It found its focus and became co-creator. Using intelligent infinity, each portion created an universe and allowed the rhythms of free choice to flow. Allowed the rhythms of free choice to flow. It's a beautiful way of saying that. Playing with the infinite spectrum of possibilities, each individualized portion channeled the love light into what you might call intelligent energy, love, again, or an expression of that, thus creating the so called natural laws of any particular universe. So the natural laws were created as an expression of that individual universe, right? The free will of that individual universe. Thus, each solar system has its own, shall we say, local coordinate system of illusionary laws. So, what we understand as the laws of physics in this solar system might not be exactly the same in another one, is what I meet there. There's opportunity for them to tweak those and adjust those within parameters, I'm sure, but there's freedom of ways they can express them. In fact, it reminds me, there's one time where Don asked Ra if they'd gone to other galaxies and what was the thing that they noticed that was much different in another galaxy other than the Milky Way galaxy. And Ra said that our galaxy is unique in that it has a bias towards mercy or kindness more, which is interesting in that the Christ manifest in this galaxy on this planet, which was to bring mercy and kindness, and to start to teach that this galaxy had a tendency in the way it was set up to incline slightly more towards that, which was interesting, given that must mean that some other galaxies maybe are more inclined towards being justice, black and white, black and white, and clarity around that, or some other way of which they administer themselves. So there it goes on. System of illusionary natural laws. It shall be understood that any portion, no matter how small, including atomic, or any density or illusionary pattern contains, as in the holographic picture, the one creator, which is infinity. Thus, all begins and ends in mystery. So again, he refers back to the holographic illusion, and that in us, no matter how small, it contains the full picture, the full expression of intelligent infinity, the original creator. We are not separate. We are integrated into it. But we feel separate because we're in a kind of dream state, especially in this reality, because of the veil. Create a veil again. Clear is only
Scott,
for this density. Yeah.
Hold on. You're breaking up a bit. Could you just turn off your camera, and then hopefully the audio will catch up.
Let me see how to do that. Yeah, hang on. Okay.
If I may,
Actually, it caught up
Don,
now. Maybe it was
I was
just
just
the
going
long
to say
stream.
that the
Okay.
didn't initially Ra confuse the term for a galaxy and solar system. So in these early parts, he would be referring to the galaxy as one logos and the solar system as sub-logos, but he referred to them both as galaxies, right?
Yeah, there
And
was some
Don
confusion about
clarified
the
that in the
language.
second book, yeah?
Yeah. But I'm using the language as we would use it. When I say galaxy, I mean Milky Way or Andromeda, etc., because that's our way of speaking about it. But Bara was using the term galaxy to refer to our solar system.
Sometimes.
Yeah,
And the
and
logos was the word for galaxy.
yeah, and Don wanted
No,
to clarify that.
logos is the word for concept.
Well,
That's what
I know,
makes
but it's
our
just
sun
Ra often used it
sub
for
logos, right?
the
And
galaxy.
our galaxy, the logos.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. And then the great central sun being the great infinite creator.
Yeah, he called the sun the sub logos, and he called us the sub logos.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
So, just to summarize, what is the illusion again?
Is the holographic? Our concept of this reality is really an illusion. What is an illusion? It doesn't mean it's not real. It just means it's not what it appears to be.
Oh,
right?
okay.
When you see an illusion in like a mirage in the desert, you think it's a big puddle of water, but when you get there, it's not. But what is it? It's actually energy and vapors rising. And it manifests and appears in our senses in an illusion of something that it's not. But it doesn't mean it's nothing. So our reality isn't nothing. It's not just a big trick. It's just what we see it as is not what it really is. It's actually spiraling energy, and that's what we're going to talk about in a minute. Just here, okay. It's all about energy spiraling, and that's the reality of what it is. We perceive it though as tangible objects and etc. Time and space.
Oh, Ashley, did you want to say your comment out loud, or just?
Oh, sorry, that was an accident.
Oh, what?
Okay.
Oh, you didn't want to say your comment out loud? Okay, all right.
No, I did. I put my hand up.
Oh no, it just. Oh, that was Adam. I'm so sorry. I did not read it correctly. Adam, did you want to say your comment? It's just I'm trying to get more people involved.
Oh, I was just saying that what Ra said is our galaxy by the sub logos. It is a bit confusing portion, and I think Quo cleared that up on their misspokenness in other sessions.
Yeah.
Thank you, Adam.
Okay. So you're on the slide. It's all spiraling energy. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So 1315. Don says, how then shall we say the planetary system that we are in now evolved? Was it created at once, or was it first our sun created and then the planets was created? I think is what it lost there. Ra says the process is from the larger in your illusion, again, to the smaller. Thus, the co-creator individualized the galaxy, created energy patterns, which then focused in multitudinous focuses, of further consciousness or further conscious awareness of intelligent infinity. So what is all that saying? The sun was first, and the sun was given sort of authority to create sub-suns or children, if you like, planets. So it went from the largest to the smallest, and it individualized the galaxy, creating energy patterns, which then focused in many different levels of focus, its awareness, or its intelligent infinity. And thus the solar system, which you experience in habitation, is of its own patterns, rhythms, and so-called natural laws, which are unique to itself. So there again, he reiterates different solar systems might operate under different kind of physical laws of physics in a sense, or different processes. there's a lot of similarity, Ra says later, but there is the leeway for them to be adjusted. Yeah. However, the progression is from the galaxy spiraling energy to the solar spiraling energy to the planetary spiraling energy to the experiential circumstances of spiraling energy, which is us, right? Which begin the first density of awareness or consciousness of planetary energy. So even in first density, the spiraling energy of rocks and the four elements um, um, is an expression of the divine, and we have been all of them. And so right now we are spiraling energy. The reality is that the illusion is we are a physical body that's separate from another physical body, and there's a table and a chair and a TV and whatever else you see around you in the room when you look around, objects or things. Those are actually spiraling energy, but we perceive them through our finite fractal bodies and self and senses as what we see, tangible objects and stuff. Makes sense? What comments you have on that? Yeah.
Spiraling energy. Yeah, go ahead, Ed.
For me, this one once again comes down to this holographic thing that Ra mentions. How essentially from the atom to the universe, the microcosm to the macrocosm, the same sacred geometries apply. That's what these spiraling energies follow. That is the laws, essentially, as it were. Whereas our sun, in our logos, our the sun, as a sub logos, I suppose, it individualizes itself the same way that our galaxy would individualize itself. Is in that it makes the planets, right? So it then makes the planets that then, via their chemistry, via the atoms that it chooses to make inside that sphere, makes us, the entities that inhabit it. So from each step down, the sun essentially chooses what organisms we're going to be, and it makes us what we are. In another solar system, but with another sun, it may have very different laws, different things that govern it. Our sun, luckily, is positively polarized, and therefore it sets us up to be heroes. Woohoo! But they're not all the same. Anyway, Andre, feel free. But fractally and holographically, we're all the same. Just to say.
I was just thinking of like a down to earth kind of way of understanding this spiraling energy business and how it works in our lives is kind of like the day to day routine of our lives. And it's kind of like a Groundhog Day where every day is kind of the same. And the way to get out of the illusion, if you will, at least the cycle of samsara, which is like the third density cycle of forgetting, is just like in the movie Groundhog Day, of choosing to be of service to others, of doing nice things for all the people around you, including yourself. And it's that love and kindness that we're kind of spiraling towards as we go throughout our day and throughout our months. And oftentimes people are going through these kinds of repeating patterns in their lives, and like, why are they always repeating? And it's because they're kind of living in this Groundhog Day where they're not making the choices that is indicating that they've properly processed the catalyst. And so the catalyst is shown to them again and again until they process it properly.
Yeah, I think that's a great analogy, the Groundhog Day movie, especially from the point of view of being unveiled and seeing your many, many lives. I think we'll be shocked to see how many times we had to go through the same bullshit before we learned our lesson. And it's all because it's a merit-based system. You have to pass the threshold by passing the grades or the curriculum. If you're in a university setting, you take certain classes each semester, and if you don't pass them, then they're not added to your graduation credits. So you have to go back and retake them, especially if they're required classes. And there's required curriculum that we all must pass to graduate into fourth density. If you haven't passed it, if you haven't met that requirement, then you retake them over and over and over again, usually in different expressions of it, but it's basically, like you're saying, the same spiraling energy until you grasp the lesson. One of the things that is an insight that you can apply to that is if something keeps coming up, if the same kind of crap keeps happening to you in your life, ask yourself, what is the lesson that it's trying to teach me? And how can I face it and grasp that lesson? Once I do that, that stops coming back then, because you've passed that test or you've learned that lesson. So it doesn't have to keep coming and repeating. And that's the way to get out of those kind of groundhog experiences. Learn to face it and say, what's the lesson? And then say, I'm going to embrace this lesson. It might not be pleasant. Often the ones we don't want, we keep repeating and don't like are not pleasant. But there's a value in learning that lesson that's required for you.
Yeah, and learning to polarize and say service to others with forgiveness, love, and kindness.
Yeah.
Bill, you said something in the chat. Would you like to say it on screen?
Well, all I said is that if you have patterns in your life, and that indicates the lesson of love that you set up for yourself reincarnatively, and you might have set that lesson up several incarnations ago. And so if you keep, dealing with the groundhog effect, then you need to look for the pattern and see what lesson of love you chose for yourself. And that's the important thing, in my view, is that we chose this for ourselves.
Yeah, it's often karmic baggage that we need to resolve. Not always, but often it is. Yeah. I think that's the last slide. It is. That's it.
Okay.
So let's just go back to.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it karmic. I wouldn't call it karmic baggage, but because these are lessons we chose for ourselves. Now, if you kind of obtain some, energy complex that's built up because of what you did, then you might need to go and deal with your karma. But these lessons we give are very specific to ourselves and our circumstances.
Yeah,
I don't think it has to do with the inertia built up and screwing things up, or it might, but it's still the lesson we gave ourselves is a lesson we gave ourselves.
Okay, I see Fred, and then Ashley after. Fred, go ahead.
I just wanted to say real quick that no, I don't think repeated Groundhog Day type things are necessarily karmic. What I noticed in my life specifically, and I can apply this to other people too, is people talking about different problems that they have repeatedly. What I noticed was when you have a repeated problem, it seems to be something that is pointing you towards a lesson of self-love, where it is just beating you up and beating you up and beating you up until you accept the fact that you are in that situation actually worthy of receiving love in that area. And once you get past that and you can actually work out in your mind that you're a part of the creator, you get that one little more step toward the oneness belief, because this is all stemming off of your individual belief system. When you do that, you're getting closer and closer to the end goal, which is complete oneness. So each of those catalysts, when they keep beating you up, you're just trying to figure out another aspect of how to love yourself properly. That seems to be what the main point of it is, at least from what I've experienced. I don't know.
Scott, did you have any comment, or we'll move to Ashley?
No, I think that's so good. There's we often think karma is always negative, but to me it's the Hermetic principle of cause and effect. Good karma, bad karma. It's the results of choices that we work through, and so karma is neither positive or negative in my mind. I think it's just the results of or consequence of what we've chosen. And sometimes in past lives, we've made choices that carry over into the next life. When Ra talked about what happened to the people on Maldek, and that they got into that knot where they couldn't be reached for a long, long time. And then when they finally reached them, they offered them an opportunity to burn off their karma for blowing themselves to bits by coming down as Bigfoot and incarnating in a second density form to work through that, burn off that karma. So there's an example of that, of how past choices, sometimes we need to work through them. We can't just push them away and say, oh, I'm going to pretend that didn't happen. There's energy in that lesson. And I think that the choice part is very profound, because I think once we understand that without the veil, we go, yes, I want to deal with that. I need something that will help me deal with that. I don't want to carry that any further. Let me deal with that in my next incarnation. Make sure it comes back until I've approached it and embraced it. I want to learn that lesson and get past that. Certainly, when you think about it, that makes sense to me. That if you've got that sort of insight and wisdom, and you realize that's something I'm going to have to deal with sooner or later, I think the time is my next incarnation. Let me get that right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Ashley, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Oh, I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh,
Sorry.
sorry for making you wait so long. Okay. Oh, Ed, go ahead. And then we have also LL research session that we still have yet to finish. So yeah, go ahead, Ed, and then
I was just gonna say, I feel from from looking at my past life choices, that I understand exactly why I'm living the incarnation I am, and I think that by understanding those and kind of having a peek into what you were, it gives unbelievable depth of understanding to what you are and what you know yourself to be, just from my personal viewpoint.
yeah, past lives really help. So yeah, usually on Friday nights we read the Confederation channeling. Are you cool with that, Scott? Do you know the Confederation?
Yeah. I appreciate you guys' attention and interest. I enjoyed the discussion, so thanks for having me. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome to stay. Well, I think this is actually relevant. This is where we left off last time.
Okay.
Yes. Hi, Kuo. Yes, I have. This is from the January 18, 2025 session, so it's very recent. This has to do with acceptance of self and a loss of innocence, and is very much related to what we've been addressing. The question specifically, I guess, would be, how can one better accept the self? And we can use dark humor as an example. When one kind of develops or loses innocence or moves away from innocence, and the ability to rediscover it naturally becomes more challenging. And one's first instinct might be to, laugh at these things that are maybe a bit twisted or a bit dark, but still one finds humorous. And so you have to accept this about oneself or situation and still kind of move forward without shaming oneself. I'm better than this, I'm more spiritual. Or it's still a natural thing to accept these challenges, aspects about oneself that may be moving away from innocence. This is kind of the sandbox I'm investigating here. And I'm hoping you may have some thoughts to share regarding those concepts. Okay, and now I just need a volunteer to read the cool part. Ashley, did you want to read?
Yes, I can read.
Okay, go
Sorry
ahead.
if it's a little noisy. So,
Okay.
we are those of Quo, and we have received your contemplations, our friend. And indeed, it seems that you have made much headway in seeking to shine a light on this path of inquiry for yourself, on this aspect of your experience. We appreciate this notion of I should be more spiritual than this, or I shouldn't feel the way that I apparently am feeling right now, as this connects to the previous query in terms of the concepts one invariably develops in your realm of confusion about who the self should be and should not be. I should be stronger. I should be more disciplined. I should be better, a better person, a better spouse, a better colleague, so on and so forth. In one way, these can be aspirational in terms of setting a goal for the self and recognizing that there are areas of improvement and areas to work upon in the self. It is always a careful balance to strike, for on the imbalanced or flip side of acceptance, one may, instead of expressing true acceptance for the self, shield the self with, as you may see it, excuses or pretensions about the self's behavior, which are adjudged to be harmful to the self or to other selves, or in need of investigation and development. And upon the other side, one may look at that which is perceived to be imperfect within the self, and upon a basis of judgment, and as you described it, shame or reject how the self is manifesting in this moment, in the certainty that the self should be other than what the self is. It is entirely possible to fully balance self-acceptance as the self is, however dark the, or shall we say, seemingly dark the humor, as you describe it, in this one aspect that may arise upon the self's radar, to fully accept the self, and also to see that work is needed, that perhaps more skillful choices can be made regarding the self's perceptions or relations to others, but this is done upon a basis of forgiveness of the self that melts that judgment which creates further distortion. As these, we correct this instrument, as the process of relating to one's own experience in this way develops such, can you lift the, thank you.
Such that
That as a daily practice, acceptance is exercised, and those threads of reflexive and knee jerk automatic judgment are brought into the light of forgiveness and awareness, such that they may dissolve, that one may release their attachment to judgment itself, then the self may see its own beingness more clearly, understanding its motivations. And in this one particular example, which you shine a light upon, maybe it is that the self realizes the underlying currents behind laughing, or finding humor, or making jest where it may seem inappropriate, or where, as is often the case, there is some connection to suffering and misunderstanding upon some level. The self, with deeper healing, recognizing the shadow work at play, may find such topics less appealing, or with less need to engage in some way. Or perhaps it is that the self is able, through this work of self-knowing and self-accepting, to release the inner strictures upon behavior and allow the self some latitude to relax, to find humor in a difficult world such as yours is. For to focus more on this particular example, humor, as those within this circle know, can be a greatly healing energy. It can also be that which is weaponized to intentionally or unintentionally inflict pain upon others, and it can also be that which is the pressure release valve that lets through some of the tension that is held and stored and begins to accumulate and affect the mind and body. For the self literally vibrates when in laughter, and this can shake loose the tension stored in the muscles and the tendons, and the tension stored in the energy body as well. Love can come through laughter, even though at times the subject matter at hand may seem less than perfectly loving. Laughter may be a means of bonding among your peoples as well.
all right. Thank you, Ashley.
Mhm.
Okay. Do we have any commentary on that? Ed, go ahead.
Obviously, I have commentary.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, like that wasn't going to be obvious. But something I always love about Quo and you know the general yeah, well, me neither, Bill, but I just force it on them. Yes, the whole LL research is this free will thing. It's about how you deal with these things yourself personally. Yeah. Now this comes down to if you're the type of person that finds that that laughter, that release of humor is a way of healing, is a way of overcoming better things and challenging things and to bringing things out into the open so that you can laugh them into absurdity, then go for it. But if it's going to be a way to laugh at yourself, if it's going to be a way of turning small things into big things, then it's a weapon. and it all comes down to how you choose to use it. You know, we are here to learn that, you know, that love triangle, the love, power, wisdom, right? You know, that's what we're all here for now. 4D. Forget these kind of, you know, are we going to make it to graduation? We're here, guys. Come on, next steps. So yes, laughter. The only other thing other than singing, I believe, that we all do as humans. Is that right? I think this is just laughter and music, if I remember rightly.
Bill? Do you you got to unmute first? Go ahead.
I'm just making comments. Yeah,
Oh,
a lot
okay.
of people are divided by humor. What's harmful to some is funny to others. So
Right,
you know.
right. That's the Schadenfreude. Yeah, that's the what do you call it?
And I say to that, to each their own. I can't help it if you don't think I'm funny.
Okay. I hear you. Yeah, well, I do know, like, I mean, there are legitimate kind of issues with, say, a culture based on Schadenfreude. Like, I know, like, the Nazis were known to engage in a lot of Schadenfreude. For example, Ed, I know you have experience there.
Dude. Have you heard? Have you seen some of the actual Monty Python and the Flying Circus TV show?
The British.
Have
The
you ever
British.
seen that?
Also
It's
very
so
dark.
unbelievable. You could not
Very
put
dark.
that on television right now. You couldn't.
Yes.
But that's because the British culture has this way of dealing with all the fear of invasion and fear of everybody being better than us by laughing at them. We turn them into an absurdity. Therefore, we can integrate them. And that's kind of how the society's always worked, which is kind of a little bit of a travesty of what's happening these days, where you can't say a joke without ending up in prison. That's just not the way it should be. The way that we deal with these things is, like I said, we bring them out into the open. Don't get me wrong, back then a lot of these things were weapons, though. I'm not going to lie. None of this is okay. It's not how we should be doing things these days.
Mm-hmm. All right. Scott, I don't know if you had any commentary on it. Ashley, go ahead.
I'm just touching on the portion of humor and agreeing that there is a balance. And for me, humor is the spice of life. I don't know where I would be without my sense of humor. It's definitely for me that pressure release valve that Quo is talking about, where it lightens the heart and it puts you more in tune with that aspect of the one infinite creator's psyche that knows that it is all a game, that it is the greatest game that was ever designed, and that its main goal was to have fun. And you know, how can the one infinite creator see having civilizations rise and fall and all this catalyst as fun? But it does, because it's expansion. It deeply desires and experiences ecstasy from spontaneously becoming all things at all places, being expressed infinitely in finite terms. It absolutely loves that, no matter what side it's on. And I've experienced that bliss. And there's nothing greater in terms of the level of joy than from being that. And so humor is a small glimpse into that ultimate nature that we have in the background, that ultimate freedom that we have in the background. It's a great mover of energy too among people. So yeah, big ups to humor. Thankful to the one infinite creator for allowing that to be a part of this experience.
Mm-hmm. And I know it's not a part of everyone's, at least every civilization's experience. I know, like gray aliens don't really engage in humor, and that was actually in a
Well,
past life regression.
in one of their
or at least
past,
some gray aliens don't engage in humor, and in the service to self, worlds maybe perhaps not as much. But yes,
Yeah,
I
there's
also
sticks
appreciate
in the
humor.
mud.
All right, Scott.
Well, I think that's a good point. That to me, humor is part or one of the divine attributes. Um, and people who are oversensitive and easily offended uh, are taking themselves way too seriously. Um, they need to sort of look at that. Why am I taking offense at such things, rather than looking for the humor in it? And I think you're right that the service to self group use humor to belittle and demean and control, because that's what they're about. They're about enslavement and keeping people in their place. It's about um, ensuring that you're getting something from whatever the interaction is, and using humor in a way that demeans is the negative aspect or application of that. But there is certainly a very positive energy in it, and Quo's mentioning that. To me, it's one of the divine attributes. So I think that when we go to fourth density and fifth and sixth density, and in the positive line, it's going to be hilarious. We're going to have a great time. It's going to be when we see things in the bigger picture, we'll start to sort of go, wow, you know. And right now we look at things that seem tragic, and we go, how can a loving God allow that, or find that that's humorous or even desirable? It's because we're looking at it from the veiled, very limited perception of humanity. Once we see things from outside of that, we'll start to see it for what it really is, and see that there is purpose in it and value in it, and even love and joy in it. And out of that comes oftentimes a lot of humor. Laughing at yourself, truly being able to laugh at yourself is a good milestone on your divine path.
Yeah.
Mhm. Ed, you got your hand up?
Just to quickly, just a little chucking it in there. Just to say, a shaman has often used the idea of humor to kind of get points across the whole spectrum of the world. Doesn't matter about, you forget about all the rest of it. You know, just because of the fact that you make a joke out of something, you wear a mask, or you make a something crazy and weird out of something very particular, can make it very important. So let's not like, like, see that like actual laughter and absurdity can be one of the most fundamental ways of teaching, and something that people have used as humans for all of what we know of as civilization.
If you think about the people that you enjoy being with, the people that you gravitate towards and like to spend time with, I guarantee you most of them are people that make you laugh. To be your best friends, that will be people that you enjoy being with because they're fun, they're funny. At least that's true in my life. Yeah.
Absolutely. My sisters, my friends, we crack up. Like when I get with family, all we do is laugh every so often. It's, yes, they make you laugh and you make you laugh, and it's good. Even physically, as Cole is saying, your body literally vibrates, and that vibration, I think, is what stimulates the immune system, because laughter does stimulate the immune system literally. So it's helping us in so many ways.
Yeah, I often watch comedy specials with my wife, as a kind of a bonding thing. But yeah, otherwise, I come from, like a Russian background, so it's very serious. And like at some point, like when I was little, I thought, the jokes were funny. But then at some point, like as a teenager, I realized the content of the jokes, that it was all dark humor. It was like, it was all like, oh, these people, they were engaging in cannibalism. It's like, oh man, I was like laughing at that for years. But yeah, it was, because there was no food, and so they were like, it was like all these anecdotes were like how to eat people. It was pretty ridiculous. But
It's all
anyways,
about the context.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we have time for one more.
Yeah, no, seriously, we need to give some context there, dude. You know, the reason that, like, you know, that you guys are all eating each other is because, you know, all the livestock would freeze to death every winter, not just because you were just randomly munching on each other randomly.
No,
Okay,
it,
you know what I'm
wasn't.
saying, right?
It wasn't that random. It was because the Holodomor, like, basically Russia was always taking away our food, and then or the Soviet Union wasn't very good at food allocation and stuff, and we had frequent famines.
Yeah, and if grandma died, you know, she was lovely to know, but you know, she is meat.
Well,
Oh,
fortunately, at least in my family, no one actually engaged in
that's not
cannibalism,
funny.
but it was a thing that happened during the Holodomor, for sure.
Hey, look. Let's not look. Let's not knock it. The people of Papua New Guinea actually had a very widespread tradition of when a family member died, you all
Mhm.
gathered around the table with their body, sat at the end of the table, and then chop the top of the head off, and every member of the family would go around and eat a very small part of the brain to absorb that dead member's essence. Now
Oh
that
man,
is
that
a established part, normal to traditional part of where cannibalism was accepted. Don't get me wrong, it did lead to the spread of kuru, which is a type of human bovine
mad cow disease.
spongiform encephalitis, giving them mad cow disease, which
Yeah,
then made them all cannibalistic. Ironically, how is
prions.
that?
Yeah, that's a terrible,
Leading to a
terrible.
mass epidemic where, lots of horrible things were done to try to stem a prion. It's not even a virus or a bacteria.
Yes,
It's a malformed type of protein that then
that's very
attacks
common
the
in
brain,
brains
making
tissue.
huge holes in it. Anyway,
Yeah,
lovely cannibalism stories.
don't do it.
No.
Don't do it. All right. Okay. I think yeah, we have time for this one still. Okay, yes, cool. I think this could be answered pretty quickly. Thank you for taking my query. I don't know if it's my imagination, but I think it is not. It seems that recently there's been stronger, more consequential catalyst occurring in the lives almost every individual I know, and a lot of it is an increase in hardship, but it's definitely catalyst. Is this my imagination that, or I'm just projecting, or this seems to be a social state, and I'm wondering about the scope of it? Is it global? Is this a thing? Could you clarify for me, please? Thank you. All right. Do I have a volunteer?
Good question, by the way, because I've been feeling
I'll
this
read
for a
it.
year.
Okay, Ashley. Okay, great.
We are those of Quo and appreciate your gratitude expressions, our sister. In one sense, this entire third density experience is an act of imagination. For you take on roles whose basis is that you are not one and not the creator. You build a world on a foundational premise that you are separate beings, operating in a separate world. None of that actually or ultimately exists. It is a play of light and shadow. But in the sense that you mean it, am I accurately assessing my subjective experience? Are others accurately assessing their subjective and collective experiences? We cannot provide these measures for you, our sister, but we can speak to the increasing intensities in your world as things are taking on an accelerated quality. Simply on the level alone of stimulation and data and information that your peoples experience on a day-to-day basis as your communication technologies, your media, your intersection with each other, and the tasks which take up your clock and psychological time in your days quantitatively increases, this also creates an experience of pressure on this level alone. And when one adds into the soup the strife, the gnashing of the teeth, the disharmony and discord and fragmentation of your peoples, and the growing loudness of the cries for help, and the loudness of the voices and anger, and the scapegoating and the blame and projection, this too adds pressure and intensity and seeming speed on simply a quantitative level in terms of amount of that which you in the third density must navigate, but particularly on a qualitative level in terms of the ability of subjective awareness to attempt to remain steady and balanced through it all, to attempt to navigate the ocean of information and experience occurring at any given moment. There are so many internal balances to strike, so many external balances to strike, so much the self wants to experience and grow into and aspire to, so much for the self to heal within, so much past experience in this and lives before. Added to that, the growing light of the fourth density vibration of love and understanding, which renders the consciousness of your third density world more transparent to itself and more brought into the light than it had ever been, so that you are bombarded yet even more with experience and energy, information and data, so that you are brought more face to face with the self and with the other self and the mirrors that the other self offers for your projection of self on one hand or your seeing of the other self on the other. It is less easy to hide, shall we say, to buttress the pretense or the defenses or the concepts to which one had been attached. For this increasing light is creating a condition of greater transparency, where the self may see the self and its fruits more clearly. And for many, even among spiritual seekers, this is a bewildering and painful condition to be faced with the self, with those aspects which had been pushed into the unconscious. Some may not be ready for this facing. And for many, this pressure and this quickening can feel and is overwhelming. It can feel like a madness for the self or for the collective. So blessed are those who may find their centers and their anchor and their ground in these confusing tornado-like times. Those who can go within and breathe deeply and allow what is to be, and to release all the, as this instrument sees it, neurotic need to do or to grasp or to even change, but instead to breathe in appreciation and gratitude and thanksgiving for that which is manifested, to vibrate that very simple vibration of love which does not need great philosophical or complex concepts, as it is the one great original thought. It is the core essential vibration of your nature and of your universe, and, even though hard to see, of the third density realm. Inhabit this space. Find ways to relax and to release tension, and you will be and find not only peace within yourself, but you will be offering peace to your brothers and sisters, more so than you can know. To many you will never meet in this journey, but you will be offering a beacon of peace in the storms. At this time, we would transfer our contact to the one known as Jim, with gratitude to the questioners and to those who anchor and hold the energy of this circle, that we may dance with you in our shared seeking of the one infinite creator. We are those of Cole.
All right, thank you, Ashley.
Mhm.
All right, Ed, you'd like to speak. Okay, go ahead, Ed, and then Bill.
Okay, I don't know whether it's just Ashley's lovely voice or whether Quo literally just punched me in the heart, but I was actually brought to tears. Not even going to lie.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you for
Lovely.
sharing. Bill? You got to unmute.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right at the beginning of this answer, when he says the entire third density experience is an act of imagination, that really shows to me the great humor of it all. You know, I don't want to call it a cosmic joke, but you know, at the end of it, it says this is a play of light and shadow. And if you can understand you're in this play, then you can, you know, have light touch and not take things so seriously. And then, you know, come into the center of yourself with all the chaos around, and then just look at things and go, well, you know what, things aren't too bad. It's just all is well, all will be well. And, you know, we're just on this ride, we're in this play. And, you know, I'm learning a lot. And as long as I can, you know, keep focusing on opening my heart and seeing the love in the moment, then, you know, everything's going to be fine.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Thank you. Good message. So, Scott, I don't know if you had any comments on this. It kind of reminds me of what you were talking about with the illusion, because you need a good sense of humor and all that.
Yeah, it actually it ties into the concept of faith, and faith has a lot of religious. The word faith has a lot of religious baggage, but faith is actually trust, isn't it? And what is it that we trust? We trust the plan. We trust that we were wise enough in our between incarnations planning phase. We were wise enough to accept the path that we're on. We trust that the path we're on is the right path for us right now. That what we're experiencing in this moment is exactly what we need to be experiencing in this moment. Instead of believing that something's wrong, or that I've done something wrong, or I've screwed my life up, or whatever else that's creating conflict and rejection and the feeling to resist life, turn and embrace it in faith and trusting that although I might not feel like this is an enjoyable experience, there's something of value in this experience. And then that changes the energy and paradigm of acceptance. And I think that's the point, isn't it? Have a bit of confidence that you were smart in your unveiled state enough to not take on too much, and your higher self, who oversees that process, would have counseled you and coached you as a guide in that. Trust that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know if anyone has any more comments on that. Let me just see what were the main points. Oh, Ben, go ahead, Benny.
So, I've heard everything, and I really think everything is great in to the level of absorbance. I don't know where it comes from, but in life, I tell you guys this all the time. We live in this three-dimensional world. So there's atoms and protons, and then it's cellular, and then it just builds up to what we are. And that's a beautiful thing about it. I've heard about mistakes. I've heard about mermaids, maybe Amina and Orion. Uh, I really think it just takes your own choices. Like, I could be the baddest person, but at the same point of this reality, I understand that my choices lead to choices, and that's the whole thing over and over and over again. It will never end for the day in your life that you won't have choices. And maybe it's the yin and yang energy, or you're light or you're dark, or if you're, I don't care what he says, whatever. But if you're light or you're dark, you're still yourself, and you're one. And I, all I can hope, is that y'all believe in love,
Very good.
because love is the best thing.
It is. For sure.
Definitely. You guys have a great night. Shabbat shalom.
Mm-hmm.
I'll eat them up later.
So yeah, I'll just one more review of the text we read here. So these are the kind of 5 main points that the AI got out of it. Was embrace the moment, accept the intensity as it is, part of the third density play. Resist the urge to judge it as wrong or overwhelming. Breathe in appreciation and gratitude and thanksgiving for that which is, for that which is manifested. Trust that this catalyst serves your growth, like Scott was saying. Simplify with love. Strip away the noise, returning the core vibration of love. It is our one great original thought, the core essential vibration of your nature and of your universe. You don't need grand concepts, just a heartfelt connection to the Creator within every breath. Release tension. Find small ways to relax. Meditation, walk, a quiet place. Kuo encourages to relax and release the tension, noting that this can ease both body and spirit, helping us navigate the storm without breaking. Ground yourself. In the whirlwind, anchor in your center. Kuo promises you will be and find not only peace within yourself, but you will be offering peace to your brothers and sisters. Visualize yourself as a lighthouse, steady and radiant, serving and collective beyond what you can see. And certainly I know the Confederation often talks about how being, just being love is often one of the greatest gifts that we can give. See the opportunity. View this quickening as a gift of transparency. Kuo explains, this increasing light is creating a condition of greater transparency where the self may see the self and its fruits more clearly. Face what's revealed with courage, knowing it's a step towards love and understanding. All right. So any closing remarks? We're past 9 o'clock here. So Scott, did you want to do an outro for the live stream portion of the podcast? Or
okay. Thank you, Andre, for inviting me to present, and I very much enjoyed the discussion. You guys have clearly got an affinity for the Lord One, and I enjoy very much these types of discussions and sharing. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, and Scott, you're welcome to join our Unity of Love and Light chat group, or and then come back and present more stuff, and just tell the topic, and then the people will say, okay, Bill, and then Ed. Bill, go ahead.
I'll just add that there's a daily affirmation that Kuo gave us, and the affirmation basically goes, "My purpose in life is to seek love, to find love, to give love, and to be love." And, that is what I view my purpose is.
Amen.
That's so powerful and beautiful. Yes. I'll donate to that. And I just think of when Carlos says, you didn't come here to change it, you came here to love it.
Amen. All right, Ed?
I just wanted to say thank you so much to Scott. Like, I really, really enjoyed revisiting the really what is the core of all of this, and I thank you so much for the open discussion. Thank you. I look forward to further and future discussions between us.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
All right, and so with that, as we found you, we leave you in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator, the one within you and all around you, my friends. Adonai Vasubaragas. Oh, go forth therefore rejoicing in the power and the peace, the infinite power and the infinite peace of the one infinite Creator. Adonai Vasubaragas. All right, so I ended the live